Welcome, everyone, to episode 127 of 1 Hour, 1 Decision, 1H1D. I am Chris.
And I am Tom.
And we take 60 minutes and play a random game on Xbox Game Pass and decide, well, is a remaster of Shadowrun Dragonfall worth our time?
It is if it's packaged into a game, right? Then it's not DLC.
That's a fair point. This episode, we're going to be talking about, well, like we said, Shadowrun Dragonfall Director's Cut by, I don't know if it's two studios, but they have a comment between, so I'm assuming so. Harebrained Schemes and Code Glue.
Yes, glue for putting things together.
Yeah.
Sticking them there.
Sticking them all in and making it into a game. And this game came out back in June of 2022. And as usual, I played this on the PC. It was a meager 1.79 gigabytes on the PC. Tom, what about you?
Shame. It is larger on the Series S, 2.1 gigabytes.
Oh, wow. That's odd, but it is what it is. And what is it? What kind of game is this?
I have isometric turn-based RPG. I think you put a little bit more on there.
Yeah, I just put it was a turn-based tactical RPG. Although isometric is like, it gives you a better picture of what kind of game you are if you're listening to this podcast. That
was my intent, was to paint a mental image for our podcast listeners.
Yeah, that's fair. I remember though during the setup there was like two different views or something.
What?
There was like a perspective view.
Oh yeah, there is. You're right.
Does it change much? I kept it as is, but
yeah, I left it alone too. So
okay. Well, sorry folks, we didn't try that. But we did try the game. And what is the game loop?
Okay. Why don't you go through it first? Because yours is a little different than mine.
Well, yours seems a little bit more, more descriptive. I put progress through missions, completing objectives, and dialogue.
I put engage in turn-based combat to complete missions and advance the plot.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I put the turn-based part in the what kind of game it is. And I was like, well, do I have to say it again? I don't know. So be it.
I guess I did reiterate myself, but I think it's very important to the game, that turn-based combat.
You're right. Absolutely. It is very much a turn-based game, and a game that we played, and a game that we're going to find out what we liked.
Yeah. And I'm looking at your list of likes, and I see something that starts with a T on there.
Yeah. Turn-based combat. I liked it. I do. It depends on the game because, for example, there was a recent game by, I'm going to butcher their name, Fraxis, I believe. They did Marvel's Midnight Sun.
Okay.
The turn-based part of that game is fantastic, especially because, you're playing with Marvel characters. You get to see all their powers and all that stuff. It was great. The rest of the game is just not great. And like, I just wish there was a mode where I could just play the tactics game part of it and not deal with any of the other garbage that's in there. No offense, but maybe take offense. Who knows? But I liked the turn-based combat, and it gives me fond memories of like the original Fallout game.
Yes.
By Interplay and Black Isle and all that stuff. So that was what I like, as I'm playing the Shadowrun game, that was something I definitely enjoyed about it. What about you, Tom? There's something here that we both put in about customization, maybe?
Yes. It's a dangerous game for me, as we all know.
Yeah.
It definitely has depth, but this game guides you through it in a very quick and painless process.
Yeah.
So I did not get stuck there. So I put that was the first thing on my list was not getting stuck in character customization, because they held my hand through it and said, this is how you do it quickly. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. The funny thing is, because I mean, as you might know already, but maybe the listeners don't, Shadowrun was a tabletop game, right?
Yes.
It was way back when, and this going through the customization like gave me so much nostalgia about us when we were trying to set up, I think it was the vampire tabletop, the Masquerade. And I was like, oh my gosh, but it was like in a good way and not in a bad way. Like it was just like there was some kind of, there was a little quirkiness of like the character, even like the little character portraits that you pick as you customize it. It was just like, it was a little bit of a, it hit me in the good feels. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And
I like that portrait setup because you could match your character to the portrait. And I was like, oh, this is genius. I loved it.
Yeah. I was as deep as it was, but like you said, it did enough to get you engaged with the customization, but got you going fairly quickly, I would think.
Yeah.
To the game. But like Shadowrun, as you may or may not know, like I said, it is a tabletop game. It has a cult following. There was actually a game I remember I think it was the 360 or the Xbox One, but it was supposed to be like a multiplayer game, and it fell hard. Yeah. It was not very good when it first came out, and they killed it immediately. But but this game though, it got me engaged and like interested again in like this whole world of Shadowrun.
Sure.
And because it's to kind of give you a better description about it, think of it as like it's the future but with fantasy elements into it, right?
Yes.
You've got the orcs, you've got the trolls, you've got elves, but they're living in modern or futurist or even like a cyberpunk society.
Cyberpunk for sure. Yeah, I would say cyberpunk.
Right? Yeah. So it's like how do they live in this world? How do we all get along in this world? Yeah. So very cool, and yeah. I don't. What else did you get out of this game?
So I enjoyed talking a little bit about the lore there. Like they did these like emote style text descriptions.
Yes.
Yeah. Like to kind of, because it's all playing out with like character portraits and there's not a whole lot of like animation, right? Mm-hmm. So they do this interesting way of like doing kind of emote text to tell you what the characters are doing or feeling, maybe the tone of their voice, to communicate more than just what the text is.
Right.
And it reminds me of like old school, not just tabletop stuff, but like playing like a MUD or something, like playing like a text-based RPG.
Definitely.
I just thought it was really cool. I think the lore is rich, even though it's all done as text. Even though it is like almost like reading a novel, I think they do a really great job of communicating it.
Now, I'm trying to remember, because your friend of the show, Phil, was really into like Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights. Did they do the same thing, or did they didn't emote either, right? It was like text, like they wrote out the emotions and stuff like that too,
I'm
right?
pretty sure, they had voice actors, to scream things out and do some tonal stuff. But yeah, I think if a character did any kind of like action, like pulls up a chair or something like that, like they have to do it with emote text. They're just not rendering it in the game,
Yeah. And speaking of the writing, I got to say this game starts off with almost, well, I don't want to say start off, but like I'd say in the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, you are immediately thrown a wrench is thrown at you in that your partner or your close buddy just dies during this mission that you go through. At least that's what I had. I'm assuming it's the same mission.
Yes.
Okay.
And more importantly, it's a good plot device because this person is in charge of the mission.
Right.
So you're being led through the mission by this character, and then she bites it, and it's like, oh, now you're in charge.
Right.
So the control moves to the player, and it makes sense in the fiction.
Right. I mean, I guess it's an interesting way to do a tutorial.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was kind of cool. And yeah, like how everything was very in world or whatnot. So yeah, that was quite the twist, I guess, if you want to call it a twist. So if I spoiled the game, sorry, like it's been out for quite some time. So like,
and in fairness, we're not spoiling anything you can't get done in the first hour, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
There's a whole lot more game than that, I hope.
Yeah. Anything else you want to bring up here about the
I think the art style is like gritty, and I think it works to help communicate the tone of the game.
Yeah.
And the same things with the music. Like I think it's kind of moving on all cylinders in terms of trying to communicate the kind of style of the game. It's all working together well.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I could see how, like, the music for sure. The art, I'm
like the character portraits. Now, obviously, the game is limited in that it's an isometric top down. Right. You're zoomed all the way out. but you can tell that it's cyberpunk. You can tell that these characters have different body builds. Like, oh, this character is a dwarf and that character is more lithe and more elfy. Like, that stuff is all there.
For sure. Awesome. I don't think I have anything left here. So
okay. Well, why don't you tell us some things you didn't like then?
Yeah, I guess just to follow up on the art, especially since this game's a remaster, we've seen some good remasters, some great remasters, and then some not so good ones. And I almost feel like this one falls in that sense because of the fact that, like, I think they could have taken the time a little bit, like, for like some animations and stuff like that, because the characters themselves didn't look great, like the models and stuff like that. The world seemed pretty basic, and I might just be spoiled because of Diablo 4, like how detailed that world is. Like I could see the potential. I mean, again, this game isn't. It's an old game that got remade and all that stuff. I get it, but and Diablo 2 got remade, and that game looked great too compared to what it was. I don't know. It depends on like the resources and stuff like that. So be it. But I didn't really like that.
Did you see that they had a 4K mode that you can enable?
No, I didn't have that option.
It's there on the console. I did not notice a significant difference when I turned it on though. So
okay,
I don't know, but it's there. It's there, maybe to make you feel like it makes it 4K. I don't know.
Right? Yeah, it's a placebo effect. That's fine. It is what it is. And what else it is the bloody percentages. I like turn-based combats, but turn-based combat games. But the thing that frustrates me the most is when you're like right in front of a guy, and it is like 90% chance you're going to do damage to them, and then you miss. I'm like, come on, guy, you're right there. How do you not give him, like, work him over in some way, shape, or form? I don't get it. It's frustrating.
It's the luck of the die.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's I was very unlucky during my playthrough. I'll say that much. So
well, that's just you, I think, in general, Chris.
Maybe. Yeah, it's just me in overall my life. It is. Yeah, but yeah, what about you, Tom? What didn't you like about this game?
Okay. Well, twice I wrote here that I was bombarded by text. Like, you're doing a lot of reading because of the lack of voiceover. And then because the game is trying to teach you mechanics.
Yep.
The good news was you didn't need to pay too much attention to those. And they were like tucked away back in in an options page. So like, if you needed to go and look at more detailed notes, you could go back and look at them later. It wasn't like this was the one and only chance to read them. But I was like, oh my God, this is a lot, It's trying to teach you all the rules of a tabletop RPG, as quickly as possible while getting you through a plot. Like it has an uphill,
it's
battle,
all that reading can definitely be draining on a person like myself, because there was a lot of reading for sure. Yeah, and this, I don't know if you finished the first mission. I did not. I almost got to the end. My character actually died. I got everyone else out, and then mine literally died right before he escaped. So that was super frustrating. And then it's like, sorry, you died, so you got to start over. I'm like, ugh.
I will agree with you that the turn-based combat means that the game is going to be a slow-paced game. That's just what that means.
Yep.
And so I only finished that first mission. That's all I got done.
Yeah.
There was not there's not enough time. I mean, it's because you have to take each action one at a time. There's no like, I'm just going to manage my guy and the AI is going to take care of the other guys. Nope.
Yeah.
You're controlling everybody, and you got to move them, and you got to select their actions, and then the enemies go, and each one of them has their own turn. And so, I mean,
and I played this with mouse and keyboard. So for the most part, it was pretty intuitive. Like, obviously, you click through most of your action, but the way that the actions were laid out, it made me think that you could use like either the number keys or something, but it didn't indicate that at all. So that was a little frustrating with like the controls part of things. There was a lot of times where I felt like, okay, you can zoom in and zoom out the camera. You can pan the camera, but you can't rotate. Or I didn't know how to rotate. And so like, I didn't know if I could, if I placed this character in this particular position, if they're actually behind cover or whatnot. So it was a little frustrating at times to kind of manage the locations, stuff like that. So I also want to say the pathing sometimes for these enemy AI was kind of terrible. I saw a lot of times they would just like run back and forth. And you're like, what's going on here? What is what are they doing? Unless they're just trying to fake me out and someone's like, they come up from behind and kill me. So that's possible too.
The distraction.
Yeah, they did it. They did their job. And I mean, going back to kind of the look and feel of this game, it felt like it was a mobile game at times.
Yeah.
Because, like it could be. I think this game could be fun as a mobile game, you know?
And because it's turn-based and
yeah.
When it's not being turn-based, it's basically a visual novel. Like,
yeah,
there's no reason it couldn't be a mobile game.
Right.
It's not very demanding, of resources or anything, except maybe your time and your patience.
I'm curious if this game could actually run on your PC, Tom.
Oh, good question. I don't know. Scared to try.
Yeah. But anything else you want to say? Oh, yeah.
I wanted to quickly say the controls on the console actually felt pretty good.
Okay.
However, on my dislikes, the camera controls, as you were mentioning, like especially on the controller, like they do not feel right. They just feel very awkward and weird and not intuitive. And I was putting the camera places I didn't want to put it. Eventually I got used to it, but it never felt right. I don't know.
Was it like a controller mouse? Like how they have in Destiny or whatever.
Yeah, it would do this like the mouse, like the camera would like go floating past my character and stuff like that. Like it just I wanted it to stay kind of locked on the party, as it were.
Yeah.
And eventually I figured out how to do that, but it was, I don't know. I didn't like it. Didn't feel intuitive.
Not good. That's all right. But anything else you want to bring up here, or should we get to our other thoughts?
I'm ready. I'm ready to move on.
Yes. Yeah, we touched on this, We touched on this a little bit in the beginning. This game was initially a DLC. And then I'm assuming it was the good folks at Code Glue that helped remaster it to be a fully fleshed out game. The original game came out back in February of 2014. So, it's
probably explains why it looks the way it looks.
Yeah. Well, a remaster, you would expect it to look a little.
Is it a remaster, or is it just that they cleaned up some things and tacked some things on here and there to make a cohesive story?
A 4K option?
Yeah, exactly.
If they put that in there, I mean, come on, I'm just saying. But How Long to Beat does say this game takes about 20 hours to beat if you're just mainlining it. That's a hefty campaign.
Yeah. Certainly a big enough DLC to make into a game.
Definitely. And it was critically acclaimed from what I understand, hence why they made this remaster. But it's kind of cool to hear and see. And I can understand it. And this game does have Xbox Cloud saves. It does not play on xCloud, I don't believe. But you can transfer your saves between your Xbox and PC and stuff like that. So that's kind of neat. Have that option.
That's good.
Yeah.
We touched on earlier that Shadowrun is a sci-fi tabletop RPG. If you don't know what I'm talking about, imagine Dungeons and Dragons with orcs and elves and all those sorts of things. But it's cyberpunk, as we talked about before. The original conception of that dates back to 1989. So not quite as old as Dungeons and Dragons, but still pretty darn old.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, they have done multiple versions of that tabletop game over the years. And there are 8 video games that use the Shadowrun license, including the ones we talked about earlier that didn't do so well. And there are tons and tons of novels. So if you are the kind of person who is interested in cyberpunk lore with all kinds of fantasy creatures in it, there is no shortage of material for you to investigate here.
There you go. So thank you for that, Tom. That was very informative.
Yeah, I figured. Lots of other thoughts.
Yeah. And we do have one more thought that we need to get to, don't we?
Oh, yes.
If we're going to keep playing this game, or...
The critical thought.
Yes, the critical thought with the critical... anyway, critical hits here. But before we get to that, though, I do want to thank our sponsor, cdkeys.com, for helping us do the show.
Have a show.
Have a show. I mean, it's fine. But check out their site, cdkeys.com, for all great deals all the time. They've got some good stuff for all the new stuff that's coming out too.
System agnostic. You can get it Xbox or all kinds of
Game Pass. You can get Game Pass subscriptions, all that kind of cool stuff. So and at a discount. So check them out, cdkeys.com, and you can click the link in our description of the YouTube or the podcast below, and help us out a little bit with that affiliate link. Wink. Anyway, are we going to keep this or trash this, Tom? What are we doing?
Okay, so I'll be honest. I enjoyed my time with the game. I even cheated a little bit by going over the hour. Not a lot, but a little bit to finish the mission because I needed to. I needed to know.
Yeah.
That said, even with that need to know, this game is a slog. Like that turn-based combat is so slow.
Yeah.
I don't imagine I'm going to go back to it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I feel like I came to the same conclusion as you. This first hour, I'll be honest, I just started to fall asleep a little bit during the turn-based combat. but like the conversations that you were having and like the actual dialogue trees and stuff it's weird. It felt like this game was more interesting in the dialogue portions than the actual turn-based portions, which is, as I was talking about Midnight Suns, that was the opposite. I didn't like that part of it. So it felt like I was getting somewhere with the dialogue. And I didn't like it. But if I have to keep playing this turn-based, like it's just slow. I don't get it. I feel like now I'm like, my God, was Fallout this slow? I'm not sure, but I'm not going to probably keep playing this game, so I'm going to pass on this as well.
When you played Fallout, how many characters were you managing?
It depends. It could be like, I think 4 characters.
Maybe by the time you got to 4 characters, you had already been playing the game for quite a while. That's part of the problem here is like you don't start as a party of 1. You're managing like 5 characters right from the drop.
That's
and
true.
So it's like I don't know what any of these characters do and all their special abilities and all this stuff. It's a lot to manage. It's a lot to ask someone to manage, and it's probably because it was a DLC, and so that early stage game where it's like I'm just managing 1 or 2 people. That exists. It exists in a different game.
Right. Yeah. But those are our thoughts. Let us know what you think of this game. Follow us and say hello on Twitter at TC1H1D, or shoot us an email at TC1H1D@outlook.com. Or, if you're checking this out on Spotify, you can send us a comment, a video, audio note. I think an audio note, and all that kind of cool stuff. But we also do our playthroughs on Twitch at twitch.tv/1H1D. And if you're watching this on YouTube, send us a comment down below and we'll try to respond too. And as you know, Tom, and as I know, we are part of the QTV network. And if you like other cool gaming podcast stuff like articles and TikToks and other, I don't know, what else do they do? Merch? Sure, whatever. We got all that over there at quitthebuild.com/network. So check that out too. But one more thing we got to do though, Tom, right?
Yes, because we don't have a show if we don't have a game to play.
That's right. And if Game Pass suddenly folded, we don't have a game either, or a podcast as well. But we do need to find out what we're playing next. So let's click that surprise me button and find out what it is. Here we go.
Oh, it's the scary part.
Okay. I don't know how to say this name, but I will do my best.
Murder it.
I will murder. Maybe, hopefully there's no murder in this game. Dordogne.
Sounds French.
Maybe it is French. But we'll find out in our next episode. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.